Welcome back to Misadventures Recap. And someone tell me, how are we already a month into the server being live? This week we've seen Scott choosing a bad time to eat during the hide and seek event.
Shh, no eating. Okay, sir.
Seapeekay being one of the luckiest players alive.
Remember chat, do not flick that lever. It's a trap.
And certain players still making the age-old mistake of right-clicking pots in the crypt.
They trapped me in that room. No! Can you shoot that? Because I just put my bow in there.
We've got loads to update you on this week, so let's get into it. But before we do, make sure you subscribe right now to stay up to date on everything Minecraft Misadventures. Let's recap.
Sausage begins his episode by showcasing the new additions to his growing mount collection, Pinky Rattington III, Ratman Jr., and Scarlet Sangria. He then shows off the new additions to his base, the custom oak tree by fWhip, the mailbox from Martin, and the new storage room. Jimmy arrives looking to borrow a fortune pickaxe, but is tricked into being captured, again. And it looks like he wasn't the first person to fall for this trap.
Sausage, who's this here?
Oh, yeah, that was the old sheriff. Remember him? Well.
Not it can't be.
Jimmy earns his freedom with a little dance, and as an apology is gifted a fortune pick of his own. Sausage then helps Cleo with Molly's sheep quest and warns them not to kill any sheep if they plan on buying them out. He then finds the new sheep quest for Ren's head and reluctantly accepts. While passing through Maryport, he bumps into Jimmy, Pearl, Scott, fWhip, and Eloise, where they get slightly distracted by Jimmy's abs before doing a little shopping. Codboy Jim even escaped the lost crypt to make a cameo. After receiving a flyer in the mail, Sausage arrives at the Road Builders Guild for the first round of recruiting. After various road building tests, he passes with flying colors. Back in the community town, Sausage lays out the plans for the new Tower of Ding, and one time-lapse later, the tower is complete. He gives a brief tour of the interior and talks about plans of asking Lizzie to make the bell ding at sunrise and sunset.
Drift explains the new quest and reputation system at Molly's sheep farm. The sheep shearing quest takes quite a bit of time and only pays out 50 gold. So she heads to Orchidea to find Esperanza. She hands in 8 enchanted golden apples that she has collected through her dungeon runs for 8,000 gold. After crafting a new set of diamond gear, she meets with Matt to buy access to his enchanting room. For what has cost most other players 100 to 150 gold, she offers 5,000. But Matt politely refuses. They end up settling on a very generous 3,500 gold and Drift gets enchanting. With her new Fortune 3 pick, she teams up with Sev for a diamond run, using these diamonds in the Lost Crypt to get 2 shulker boxes. And it looks like Pix's parkour lessons have paid off as she completes the parkour room with ease. She meets up with Avid and heads to the Road Builders Guild recruitment day. Despite sliding Avid a flint and steel to start a forest fire, they are both hired. Taking her new job very seriously, she reveals her new work uniform and crafts the perfect road building Shovelnator 5000. Moving on to the milk and path building partner in crime, Old Man Avid rides his new goat mount into town and recounts the story of how it happened. It begins with his POV of the Road Builders Guild training, which I recommend watching as there's a few extra scenes which haven't been covered in any other videos. He explains how he lost his rat mount, but instead of replacing it, wants something new. He has killed far too many of Molly's sheep to get the sheep mount, and the skeleton wolf is far too rare of a drop chance to want to try. But Lizzie had hinted that a mount was accessible through the goat breeder, Travis. With no further clues, Avid accepts Travis' quest of breeding 5 wild goats and gets to work. He steals 4 goats from a nearby mountaintop and brings them home for easy access. Underwhelmed by the rewards for completing the quest, he won't give up yet. He steals every single goat he can find, but realizes that it's not a lack of goats that's slowing him down, but a lack of wheat. He trades with fWhip a stack of hay bales for 8,000 gold, which naturally makes fWhip suspicious.
My nan is over to visit and she has a condition, so she just kind of she's clearing her throat.
Okay, yeah, right.
Something tells me fWhip didn't buy it. Drift pays a visit, and after seeing his living conditions and how many times he's already completed the quest so far, shares her concerns.
Avid, at what point does the madness stop?
But as much as Avid is losing his sanity, it doesn't stop him from making us another banger. That's right, it's Goat in a Boat. And finally, on chest 215, he is rewarded with the white goat mount. With the remaining 70 reward chests, he finds a Goat Master 5 book, which he figures out is a sword enchant that spawns goats. Now I'm curious if this means that there are other coloured goat mounts to farm, or if he'll use this enchant to help others get their goat mounts. But after naming all of his goats some kind of misadventure goat pun, he releases them all back into the wild. And since these quests have made him an absurd amount of money, he decides to take 100,000 gold and bury it somewhere on the server for one lucky explorer to maybe find one day, accepting though that it may never be found.
Lizzie names her sheep Barnaby the Trusty Steed before heading out on an adventure to find her own plot in the wilderness. She finds a perfect magical forest, but with it costing 50,000 gold, she's gonna need to get to work. She livestreams some dungeon running, and although it didn't make a ton of money, she did find her first backpack. She tries out the Lost Crypt instead, and despite dying multiple times, she was able to find some enchanted golden apples, which when sold to Esperanza can make some serious money. While running the Lost Crypt, she realized finding the final lever is quite tedious and could benefit from having a clue earlier in the dungeon. Thankfully, she's the creator of the server and is able to add one. She then showcases the new Oracle Tomb, which contains a clue for which room the final level will spawn. After a few more runs, she hands in some more golden apples to Esperanza, and for a change of pace, decides to try some fishing quests. Katherine appears and has something to show her. She's found a magical pond that, when fished inside, provides prismarine crystals and shards. Many fishing quests later, Lizzie dumps all of her buckets of fish in the Maryport fountain before remembering why axolotls don't mix well with aquariums.
Oh no! Oh my gosh, it's a massacre! Get out of here. Oh, get out of here!
She then fishes up an invitation to a hide-and-seek tournament with a cash prize. She rushes back to Maryport where Cam introduces the rules and round 1 begins. Somehow surviving being caught despite Scott's loud eating, she ends up being caught by Matt. Sev wins and Lizzie has to pay out 500 gold. A ton more fishing later, she is just 400 gold away from her goal of 50,000. She asks Joel for the final amount, who reluctantly helps.
Sorry, I've done the maths wrong. Can I keep the tip? Thank you. Goodbye.
What? No. Oh.
Lizzie ends her episode by purchasing the magical forest plot with big plans to come.
In Callum's episode 2, he says that he's got a new goal in mind, and that's to get every mount he knows about, those of which being the 3 rat mounts and the sheep mount. Callum's new narrator explains that he needs to get a load of money, and the best way of doing that is to run some dungeons. He manages to find the secret cave where Muckshell and Champ reside, and learns about the exclusive trading card that you can purchase. After being informed by Martin, Lizzie and Scott about how to get the mount and how to undo the damage done by killing many rats already, Callum decides to put that on pause for now and go get himself the sheep mount. He completes the sheep shearing quest 7 times and finally gets the new mount. And well, let's just say he celebrates it in a quite a unique way. He heads back to the sheep farm to get himself 4 stacks of mutton to feed the rats. And after feeding all of that mutton to the rats, he's able to get the white rat mount from Smudge. He goes back to the sewers in an attempt to get the last 2 mounts and even feeds a notch apple to one of the rats, which unfortunately doesn't really help him. He ends the episode with just 2 out of the 4 mounts obtained. However, he has new information about the incredibly rare mount that only Sausage has got so far. Maybe Seapeekay has a new goal now. We'll have to wait and see.
Taneesha agrees to clear Drift's debt in return for a home makeover. She pays Matt for enchanting services, but still needing mending, decides to run the Lost Crypt. On stream, she completes the dungeon for the first time, and then rerunning it later, she finally gets her mending book. After a lot of fishing and many dungeon runs later, she isn't able to find any more mending books, but has enough money to buy an island for her future toxic park and dungeon build. She then ends the episode with a tour of her newly decorated home by Drift. Katherine introduces the quest and reputation system at Molly's sheep farm. Despite being in good standing with Molly, she completes the shearing quest anyway, and then buys the sheep mount to add to her collection at the museum. With help from her comments, she names the horses Stardust and Sparkle, the White Rat Moon, and then asks for more name suggestions for the new sheep. She heads back to Maryport in search of more quests, finally finding Herbert Codswallop with a quest of eating 25 raw salmon. After a lot of running back and forth, she completes the quest and continues her search. She finds and completes Travis's goat quest, and then hands in a couple enchanted golden apples to Esperanza. After a montage of other quests, she realizes some of these quests are hurting her reputation with Maryport.
Oh, and I got a barrel of stolen goods. Those are the bad guys. Oh, I'm working with the bad guys.
Back home, she finally decides it's time to clear up her mess, so she digs out a basement and decorates a storage room, as well as a living room, kitchen, and bedroom.
It's moving day and fWhip needs to prepare to move everything out of the fWhip family farms before having it turn into a wheat farm for players. But before that, he builds a guild job board so the 5 new members can get to work building roads. He takes all of his belongings over to a storage cave which is carved out under the Road Builders Guild Hall, and then gets to work organising. He then proceeds to build a secret basalt farm, which after then expanding slightly manages to farm 5 stacks of it. This is going to be vital for his upcoming dungeon build. After a long session of gathering resources for the build, fWhip swings by the Space Cove to deliver some wheat to Avid. And I mean, we've already shown you the kind of interaction that happened there. After his client crashes and he loses his trusty steed Chestnut, fWhip heads off into the wilderness to find Ollie, and with a 500 gold processing fee in hand, Ollie becomes the first client for the Road Builders Guild. Business is booming as fWhip also runs into Cam, who wants a road built to Cambridge and is more than happy with the hefty price tag. We then move over to the dungeon plot as fWhip starts building his rocky facade, including a rather nice creek. He adds some foliage to help bring it to life, and it's getting me really excited to see this whole dungeon come together. However, with all that time spent building the dungeon entrance, Cam and Ollie find fWhip in Maryport and remind him that he has some work to do. He completes Ollie's road and heads back to the Road Builders Guild to add the first completed project into the guild log.
Shelby teams up with Joey for some Lost Crypt dungeon diving. Since finding out about the Skeleton Wolf Mount, the Lost Crypt has become her second biggest obsession, right behind flirting with the Watchmaster. They sneak through the spider room, which I didn't even know was possible, and things are going well, until Joey dies. And then Shelby loses her bow to a decorative pot. Trying to save it, Joey loses his too. And then Joey dies again. But things get better as Shelby finds a mending book and completes the parkour puzzle for the first time. They even run the dungeon enough times to farm all 4 types of skeletons and then head home. Back in Maryport, Shelby isn't able to make the Watchmaster crack just yet, but does secure a backpack trade with Avid for a mending book. She discusses some cult exit strategies with Drift and fWhip, as well as getting a fashion show from Avid and his various skins. Shelby ends her episode by wheeling in a new fortune teller card and decorating it with a full enchanting setup.
Jojo introduces us to the world of Misadventures speedrunning, focusing mainly on min-maxing the dungeon and gathering as much loot as quickly as possible. We get a full breakdown of Jojo's Lost Crypt runs, including how she tackles puzzles like lighting the candles, as well as cutting corners in the parkour room. We also get some insight into the best possible locations of the final lever, and also see an incredible run that marks Jojo's PB in the Lost Crypt. 2 minutes and 31 seconds is going to be very hard to beat. However, if you do want to know more about the dungeons in Misadventures, we have a dungeon deep dive video that explains the mobs, secrets, loot, and lore, so make sure to check that one out.
Cam begins his episode with a commentary over his Cozy Shack time-lapse. He then tours the build, featuring the new mailbox, his wall of death, and the beginnings of a storage room. He reveals Remy the rat is gone, but now has a new friend, Linguini. On his travels, he finds his head on a post with a sign saying, "Wanted, dead or alive," but shrugs it off as he is on a mission to right his wrongs with Molly. Being one of the most prolific sheep murderers on the server, he has to complete the sheep shearing quest many, many times. And thankfully, his jokes don't have a negative impact on his reputation.
What do you call a quiet sheep? A sheep.
Eventually, he's able to buy the sheep mount and names him Bruce, the Destroyer of Worlds. He takes a dive into the Lost Crypt dungeon, featuring the new Oracle Tomb, and inspired by Jojo and Callum's speedrunning antics, even surprises himself with an Anvil Neo in the parkour room. Cam ends his episode by introducing Bruce to his new home, with plans to decorate and expand his claim next episode.
And that's all for this week's Misadventures recap. But make sure to let us know down below in the comments what your favourite Misadventures moment has been this month. However, I can't really think of a witty sign-off, so let's just watch Callum's sheep celebration again.